Cloudcast Media. Drew Schlosberg Spotlight on the Community Show, amplifying the voices of social impact organizations, entrepreneurs, local nonprofits, and other community champions who shape the culture, creativity, and connectivity of San Diego. Brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union, bringing good things to San Diego for over 60 years. Learn more about what is good for you and good for all by visiting www.missionfed.com.
I'm Drew Schlosberg of Cloudcast Media, and we are absolutely thrilled to have with us back in the studio. Dave Oates is a true leader in crisis communications and PR and everything in between. Dave, how you doing?
Good, Drew. It's good to see you. How you been?
Oh, just doing just fine. Thank you very much. I'm joined by my associate producer, Brandon Joe of the Spotlight on the Community Show. Brandon is a junior at UCSD, but he's an entrepreneur. He has started his own nonprofit called Treasure Hacks. How you doing there, Brandon?
Doing good, and I can't help but giggle every time you say entrepreneur.
Well, you are. That's funny. That's what you've been.
I want to hear about that offline, about your Treasure Hacks. I want to hear about that nonprofit.
Exactly. So, Dave, just a little bit of a background on how you got into the field. You've been a crisis communications expert for 30 years. And why that part of it, and we're going to talk about some of the cool stories. I mean, we could talk to you for 17 hours and not even hit 1/90th of what you've gone through. But what got you into it?
The most backwards way you've ever found out. So I think you and I talked about that. Right. I got here to San Diego courtesy of the United States Navy, got my commission, came out here, was driving ships.
Thank you for your service. Thank you.
I got more out of it than I gave, but thank you. I'm here. Right. I turned 6 months into 30 years in San Diego and counting, and it's been a blast. But yeah, I was driving ships on a guided missile frigate, forward deployed operations, those kind of things, counter-narcotics operations. And when you're on a smaller ship as a junior officer, you get all these sidebar collateral duties. And about 18 months into that one, I got picked up as the collateral duty public affairs officer. And it was like, great, what the hell is that? And you started learning from other Navy public affairs officers in San Diego. And you know, when that light bulb clicks when you're about in your mid-20s, it's like, whoa, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. And just by happenstance, I found out that there was a process where the Navy takes a very small handful of officers, transfers from their warfighting communities to the public affairs communities. And I just kept being a pest, networking, building up a resume, doing my day job well. Got picked up about 18 months later, became a public affairs officer, got sent to a 2-month immersion defense information school in Fort Meade, Maryland, came back out here. No good deed goes unpunished. About 6 months later, I find myself in Haiti as the spokesperson for joint military operations. I come back from that. I'm doing media relations for military exercises, and then I'm on an aircraft carrier for 2 years. And so all of that, in addition to the promotional and the community relations and the international relations, there are adverse matters. And you learn very quickly about crisis communications and how to be transparent, how to be authentic, how to be message, how to be fast, and how to be accurate in a multidimensional fashion. I got to do all that before I was 30. And then transitioned to the private sector. Now I'm working predominantly for agencies in software, tech, wireless. So now I'm dealing with when startup companies don't get the follow-on series funding, they've got to do mass layoffs, product launches get delayed. On occasion, CEOs or other executives do things they're not supposed to. Now I'm running point on that. When I launched my own agency about 17 years ago, still doing promotional, but the wonderful little mobile devices we all carry around now made every organization a target. So I was doing crisis and promotional work, but about 6-7 years ago, I had a light bulb when other PR and marketing firms kept calling me to help them with their clients, saying, can you help on this crisis matters? They're getting killed on Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, or whatever. And of course, my response was, well, yeah, I can help. But can't you? Talking to some other colleagues, and they went, no, we don't know this. We haven't been introduced. It's not fun. We'd rather have you run that. And it dawned on me, I'm not the brightest guy in the world. So after a few of these, I went, okay, wait a minute. I could turn all of my great colleagues who are also friendly competitors into referral partners. I'll take all the crisis stuff. I'll give you all the promotional stuff. and we'll live happily ever after. And that was 6 years ago. And honest to God, I wish I'd done it a decade ago. So I get clients now all over the country because I'm fortunate to have a network there. Half of my business comes in through Southern California. And honest to God, I'm having the time of my life.
Yeah, what's great about this, and as you know, I was the spokesperson for the Union Tribune for 11 years. And so I had to deal with a lot of crises. And what's interesting about that, and I tell people, and maybe you can explain this. I mean, this could be easily a 7-hour show and not even come close, and with a lot of interesting different stories in it. But I really applauded the UT in this aspect. They did it right. There was only one person that was authorized to talk to the press, and that was me.
Yeah.
And so you have to funnel that aspect of it. Talk a little bit to, whether it's a small mom and pop or whether it's a big company or not, is really having a communication plan where people know who is the person, and we'll say in this case, that should deal with the media.
Yeah, and to that end, you have to think about the kind of things that could be the adverse events. I don't care if you're, as you said, some little local coffee shop in a neighborhood where I live in Tierra Santa, or you're a big bioscience, life science, Fortune 100 company. You have inherent risks to the business. You always do, especially when you're dealing with people and you're dealing with products and you're dealing with product launches or you're dealing with just customer interaction. Things are going to get missed. Things are going to get delayed. It's human nature. And now, anybody who walks into your storefront, virtual or physical, is a broadcaster because we all have these smartphones. We all have a camera, a microphone, and with our social media apps, a distribution service. So it's no longer just the third-party trained journalist in a traditional media outlet that has an audience. It's everybody and their sister who can, at a moment's notice, emotionally based, oftentimes without facts, can disparage you. So you got to think about how you're going to respond, who's going to respond, the type of things you're going to run into. Everybody's got inherent risk, and train to that. Because if you don't, somebody can take your hard-earned reputation and tarnish it to at least a point where sales get delayed. People have to now second-guess something that they didn't do beforehand. And in some really catastrophic cases, it can kill your business. But every organization now has to worry about that.
Yeah, no question. We're chatting with Dave Oates, the founder of PR Security Service, longtime expert in the field of crisis communications. I'm Drew Schlosberg. You're listening to another edition of Drew Schlosberg Spotlight on the Community Show, nation's longest-running community podcast, now in our 18th year, brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union for 6 decades, just doing great things in San Diego County. Brandon, you got a question for Dave?
I'm just so curious because the concept of a crisis in PR is just, I've always kind of played with the idea. You see online brands that get destroyed by a movement, a tide of people that just have something negative to say about them. I would have never thought about the other side of the role. You would look outward to find someone who's a crisis PR person to figure out how to reconcile with that. What would you do if there was a tide? Well, I guess what's your process for when there's a tide of negativity going against a company? How do you deal with that? What's the first step? Are you just I'm screwed?
I like that. Yeah, I'm done. Good luck today, and I'll walk away. No. But you bring up an excellent point. Today, many people would call that the cancel culture, right? And why do you deal with today's cancel culture? Look, the cancel culture has always been in existence. But now everybody has a voice to amplify that in short order, right? The difference between then and now is speed, and is the speed at which people can disparage you. So 2 things. One is preventative side. Every organization should know if somebody's talking about them online, whether they get any business or not. And so that's setting up Google free systems like Google Alerts and others, where in a couple hours notice, you get alerted when somebody's talking about you. So you're not the last person to know. And when it happens, you need to emphasize 2 things and do it quickly. One is you need to emphasize empathy and action. Now, by empathy, I don't mean that organizations need to apologize for something that they didn't do. You get somebody who just, for whatever reason, has got their nose out of joint and a fact incorrectly, fact out of context. It doesn't mean you have to apologize for that. But you can't go screaming and shouting back to them, either on YouTube or Instagram or to the press, because all you're going to do is elevate that anger. And then we get into the 24/7 cable news outlet, which nobody is interested in anymore. So empathy is to explain to them, look, we hear you, we understand, we appreciate your feedback. Here's how we're going to correct the misunderstanding. Here's how we're going to fix the shortcomings. And by the way, start with your employees to arm them with the information, because they're the ones who are talking to your customers and your business partners before you are. And if they feel empowered, they're going to come to your aid. They are the ones who are going to amplify your voice. Start with your employees, talk directly to your customers. If you've got business partners, you need to talk to them, then your investors or your shareholders, and then the press. That doesn't mean you need to delay that. Don't wait a day to talk to the press. But be sure that if you're going to talk to the press, that everybody who's in your inner circle understands what you're doing first. Because if you just talk to the press and don't keep them informed, they're going to feel disenfranchised and they're going to undermine anything that you say publicly. And it's going to be viewed more like lip service than actually definitive actionable steps.
Gotcha. So you're looking for your company to be advocates for you. So all of your employees, if something happens, they will stand up. They will talk and give their authentic opinion about what's going on.
Yeah.
And so I'm just curious, what if you have a crappy relationship with your employees? Are you just...
Yeah, no, it's a great idea, right? If you have I'll call it, I think the technical term is sucky culture, and somebody takes a pot shot at you, those type of dysfunctions within your workplace are going to be amplified more. So look, I'm not a public defender. If an executive just wants to use me as a human shield and continue to do the things that they shouldn't do, right? Which is take care, they don't want to take care of their employees. They don't want to take care of the customers. There's a reason why people have a voice to talk about that, and you should be out of business. I'm sorry, not every business should be in business if they're not doing the right things for the right reasons, for the right, for the betterment of all. Rising tide raises all boats. You make more money when you take care of your employees and your customers and your investors and your business partners. If you are not that one there, shut it down now and try again. If for some reason you are and somebody decides they're going to take a pot shot at you, or look, every business and every executive doesn't hit it out of the park every time. We all make mistakes. We're humans. Own it. Take action for that. And get people to understand what you're doing. And people will give you a second chance. It's when they feel like they're being disenfranchised or disrespected and discredited. That's when people get anxious, frustrated, and anger, and they'll take to the social media.
Have you had a story or a situation where you're going into the company and you're like, oh, it seems like there's a valid reason to defend them, and the CEO is like, yeah, it's totally valid. But when you start digging, all of these problems start popping up, and you're like, hey, so
So I have the privilege of having 30 years of getting my teeth kicked in by different organizations. So and Drew mentioned the UT. I was trained, and I know Drew will know this name. I was trained by a reporter named Jim Crawley. God rest his soul. He was a military reporter back 30 years ago, who took this young public affairs officer under his wing and taught me how to be better at my job. And in turn, he was fair at his job. And there's a couple other guys. Tony Perry, who was at the LA Times for a number of years. Bob Lawrence, who was a 10 News reporter. Those folks, amongst others, train me how to do my job in a very transparent manner. And so in doing so, I also know what questions to ask clients when they have an adverse event going on there. And for understandable reasons, the executives are very defensive, right? Now they're feeling their personal identity is being attacked in addition to the corporate identity. And so they put shields up. And I know the questions asked to say, yeah, okay, all this other stuff people are accusing of is not right. But you see that little monicum of event? Do you see this thing that you did right here? Yeah, that wasn't cool. I know he didn't mean anything by it, right? Again, we're all human. But if we own this and we accept responsibility for that and we make amends for that, everything else goes away, because now you're being vulnerable. You're being empathetic and you're taking action. Everybody else goes, okay, cooler heads prevail. Let's all give ourselves some space. Let's fix what we need to fix and we'll all move on. Companies get into trouble when they categorically deny something, that when you find just a modicum of truth, their entire narrative just gets destroyed. And now you've given somebody who's got 10,000 followers on Instagram credibility that they otherwise wouldn't have.
Yeah, no question about it. We're going to come back from break to continue this conversation with Dave Oates. He's the founder of PR Security Service, a longtime crisis communication guru in San Diego County and others. He has clients around the country. I'm Drew Schlosberg. I'm listening to another edition of Drew Schlosberg Spotlight on the Community Show, brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union. For 6 decades, they've been doing great things for people living in San Diego County. We will be right back.
When you do your banking with Mission Fed, you get great rates on auto and home loans. That's good for you, but something good also happens for a lot of other people. We're not for profit, so we put money back into the community to help lots of great nonprofits to keep San Diego strong. So you're not just getting something good, you're doing something good. Come to Mission Fed. It's banking that's good for all.
Brand amplification is the DNA of Cloudcast Media, and our code is the powerful blending of sound, voice, and storytelling to lift local brands and their communities. Whether it is our Brandcast, Schoolcast, or Causecast platforms, the unifying ethos is all about this community, the one you call home. If you dare to dream and want to explore the brand amplification of Cloudcast, a national leader in local podcasting and other Winfluence strategies, please visit us at cloudcast.us.
I'm Drew Schlosberg, and we're listening to another edition of Drew Schlosberg Spotlight on the Community Show. We are the nation's longest-running community podcast in our 18th year, brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union. 60 years of doing great things in San Diego County. Thrilled to be chatting with longtime friend and colleague Dave Oates, founder of PR Security Service. Certainly a maven when it comes to crisis communications, joined by my co-host, associate producer of Spotlight on the Community Show, Brandon Joe. You know, it's interesting. You hit on something that is so true. You have to understand the media are not your friend. Okay, so you know you can be honest. You should be honest with them. Don't lie to them. That is not a smart thing to do. Okay, that seems obvious to folks like you and me, but not to folks who have had dealt this thing. So you always want to tell the truth. You know, and some things you don't have to divulge, to be honest with you, in this aspect of it. And, you know, talk a little bit about this before we get into, you know, how do people prevent crises in all this business, is that you have to have the head of the organization, whether it's Ed's Vacuum Shop and there's 7 people,
right,
or it's SDG&E, that are going to trust your decisions in dealing with crisis communication. So I worked very closely, and you know him very well, God rest his soul, to Bill Trumfeller.
Oh, yeah.
NST, Nuffer Smith Tucker, PR. And Bill and I, actually, I'd hired NST PR as our PR firm, as you know, when I was running community and public relations at the UT. But, you know, Bill would always say, listen, we fire people. You know, we're not going to work for you because we don't think you're going to trust our decisions and all that.
Yeah.
Talk about, have you done that where you just, you know what, this is what I know, this is the best way of doing it, but listen, if you can't follow my instructions on it, I can't work with you.
Yeah, I do that all the time. And the issue that I have when I get into a situation is I'm generally taking many of the executives I have the privilege of working with out of their comfort zone because, again, they feel personally attacked. And sometimes that's understandable. And they will get very defensive or they will want to just shut it down and not say anything at all. And I'm telling them there's a lane here you can and should follow, which is the empathetic, action-oriented messaging, a little bit of transparency, authenticity. And that's just taking them out of their comfort zone and requiring them to be vulnerable. And I give the recommendation within about the first hour of having a conversation because, you know, if there's a crisis brewing, and as Brandon talked about, there's this tidal wave of negativity against an organization, you don't have that much time and space to respond. I say, you got to plan for an hour. So in that time, I say, these are the things you're supposed to do. It's a yes or no. Now it's binary. And I'm happy to talk, you know, debate a little bit of the nuances, but it's a yes or no. And if the answer is no, I don't want to do that. All due respect, well wishes, good luck to you. I'm not your guy. I don't want to be in this position where I'm forcing somebody to do something they're just not going to do, and vice versa. I don't want to be put in a position where I know they're going to put me in a position where I'm going to do something that is not right.
Well, it's interesting you say that. For PR folks like you, myself, you'll see something happen. And then we'll go one of the two things. You and I have seen this 4 million times. is A, did this PR person not have the ability to tell the CEO, we're not doing that? And the CEO said, we're doing it. And then you go, who represented that person? Okay, because then it's on your record of you let the CEO say X,
Right.
What is wrong with you?
Yeah.
No, I had left the company before that and he did it on his own or whatever the case may be. So it's sort of a tricky slope in that aspect. But talk a little bit about how do you prevent a crisis? Can you prevent a crisis?
Oh, without a doubt. First off, you have to understand the inherent risks to your organization. Right?
Yeah.
Every business, nonprofit, government, for-profit, manufacturing, distribution, services, restaurant, you have inherent risks. You should recognize that. And also, in addition to, we talk about cyber risks, for example. In addition to creating operational contingency plans for when those occur, you should create communication plans, starting inward and moving outward. Employees first, directly to customers, business partners, shareholders, executives, that sort of thing, and the press, and have those ready and then train to them. And where I see organizations falter is when they don't have a communication plan in place. And so you're trying to make it up on the fly while you're dealing with all your emotions of, again, panic ensuing. You see your professional and by extension, your personal life flashing in front of your eyes. Now is not the time to figure out how to do this. And this goes back to my Navy days. We would train for accidents and disasters. We trained with those constantly. Why? Because when those occurred, it became muscle memory. And I think that's important for any business to do.
Right. There's no question about it. It was really interesting that when I was a spokesperson for the Union Tribune, I know the folks in the newsroom would interview me just as tough as they would interview anybody else, because they didn't look at me as a colleague. They look at me, no, I need an answer from you. And,
Right.
And I made a point to never say no comment on this, because how hypocritical would that be for the Union Tribune that demands people not to say no comment to have their spokesperson say no comment? So I always invited in, as you may remember, all the TV stations and whatever. I wasn't going to sit there and tell them what they wanted to hear, but I'm going to say, here's what I'm going to talk about. And as a PR person, and I know the TV stations really appreciate it. Thank you. You're letting us go on air, letting you talk about X, Y, and Z. We know the parameters on this. But I would tell the folks in the newsroom, of course I'm going to sit there. How hypocritical would it be if we sat there and said no comment? Talk about that.
I tell people all the time, you can be in a position where you don't, and more importantly, can't disclose information, largely because of legal constraints. Right, there are regulations that prevent you from disclosing privacy matters and trade secrets and so forth like that. And in those cases, when you're asked a question that falls within that line, you need to tell them why you can't discuss it. Hey, I can't go into that because of these reasons.
Exactly.
Where people get in trouble is when you say no comment, the expectation is that you should say something, but you won't because it's uncomfortable. And this goes back to what I tell organizations. Just because you don't want to answer the question doesn't mean you shouldn't answer the question. It doesn't also mean that you want to get into speculative matters. When a question comes in about what's going to happen in the future, hey, if there's an accident, there's a cyber breach, we don't know yet. We're still doing all of the analysis. We're still trying to figure out who the bad guy was. Okay, fair, but at least give them what you know and how you're going to find out the other things that they're asking you about. But just saying no comment looks like you're in bunker mode. And good luck to you on that one, because all you're doing is extending the crisis and giving people the perception that you don't care or you can't be trusted.
Well, listen, or you've got something to hide. Yeah. And so, and that's something that's, certainly you don't want that to happen. We're chatting with Dave Oates, founder of PR Security Service, longtime expert in crisis communications in our region. I'm Drew Schlosberg, listening to our edition of Drew Schlosberg Spotlight on the Community Show, brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union. And, you teach at San Diego State.
I do.
You're involved in the Rotary. You're involved in something that a lot of people don't realize is really big in San Diego County, and that's human trafficking. Yeah. And that's a whole nother conversation for maybe another time when you're on. But let me ask you this. If people listening to this interview say, you know what, we need some help from a guy like Dave or whatever. Can people get a hold of you, or listen, you've got too many clients right now, or is there any such thing as too many clients?
No.
In that aspect of it, how are they going to hold of you?
So I'm like a bail bondsman, right? Hopefully you never have to need me, but you better have my number on speed dial because the crisis happens and you don't need me. No, look, even if it's just a conversation about what if scenarios, if you Google me, Dave Oates, Crisis PR, my LinkedIn page pops up, my website pops up, and on my website, anybody can schedule 15 minutes with me just for what if conversations. We're cut from the same cloth. It's the spirit of San Diego. We're all one big community. We all want to help each other without really any expectations of immediate business. We're not transactional. We're a relationship business. So if I can be of service and just a sounding board for other organizations, both here in Southern California and elsewhere, my God, what a privilege it is to do so. And we've been around enough that we know that things will come to us. Let's just be of service to others. And you mentioned my service background. It's a privilege. I'm so thankful that I get to be here for this one.
Well, we're going to get you back on because we just touched just a little bit about, we're going to tell more stories next time you're on. We'll see if we can bring in, if he wants to do it, our good friend Peter McCracken of Strategic Communications. And actually, we'll probably make it a 7-hour episode and still won't touch it all.
We didn't even get to the stories. I'd love to hear Peter, you, and us. When we talk about stories, we'll leave out the names to protect the guilty and just have a ball in talking about all the things we've done. Drew, it's great to see you. Thanks for the time.
It is so good. Dave Oates, long-time PR maven, especially in crisis communications. We're going to look forward to your return appearance. I'm Drew Schlosberg. You're listening to another edition of Drew Schlosberg Spotlight on the Community Show, the nation's longest-running community podcast, now in our 18th year, brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union. 6 decades of doing great things for people living in San Diego County. We hope you enjoyed the interview.
You've been listening to an episode of Drew Schlosberg's Spotlight on the Community Show, amplifying the voices of social impact organizations, entrepreneurs, local nonprofits, and other community champions who shape the culture, creativity, and connectivity of San Diego community. Brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union, bringing good things to San Diego for over 60 years. Learn more about what is good for you and good for all by visiting www.missionfed.com.
Cloudcast Media.